Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. John Lee's path to Government House is cleared after Beijing accepts his resignation as chief secretary. Shanghai residents worry about food supplies as COVID infections climb above 20,000. And dozens of people are feared dead in a rocket attack in eastern Ukraine. Beijing has approved the resignation of Chief Secretary John Lee, paving the way for him to become Hong Kong's next leader. The former government number 2 is set to give more details of his election bid tomorrow. Johanna Chan reports.
Shortly after Beijing approved John Lee's resignation as chief secretary, the man who is eyeing Hong Kong's top job went to Wan Chai's Central Plaza, the location of his campaign headquarters. Lee said he will give more details of his plan when he meets the press tomorrow.
I have worked in the government for 45 years. I have been taking part in different positions, which provided me with a lot of valuable experiences, knowledge, and abilities. It has also broadened my vision. I thank Hong Kong and the people of Hong Kong for allowing me to serve Hong Kong in these 45 years. I shall continue this passion to proceed on the way that I shall be proceeding.
The city's sole delegate for the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, Tam Yu-chung, confirmed that he is helping 64-year-old Lee prepare for the election, but didn't say whether he's the campaign director. Chief Executive Carrie Lam admitted that Lee's departure will affect government operations, but gave an assurance that others will pitch in. Lam said another senior official will be appointed to the Candidate Eligibility Review Committee, which is 2 members short after Lee and Home Affairs Chief Casper Choi stepped down. Beijing's approval came just 2 days after Lee resigned, with many speculating the speed indicated its support. In 2017, it took Beijing 4 days to approve Lam's resignation as chief secretary, and 35 days for former finance chief John Tsang. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
Shanghai has for the first time recorded more than 20,000 COVID cases, mostly asymptomatic. With the megacity still sealed off, residents are worried about food supplies. Chloe Feng reports.
A video taken in Shanghai's Pudong district shows people in a building crying for help. They claimed they haven't received food supplies since a lockdown began nearly 2 weeks ago. Local officials said the building is for commercial purposes and is not eligible for supplies. But the residents argued that's because a management office has not yet been set up in their building. Other provinces have been rushing food to the mainland's financial hub. But according to a resident in the city of 26 million people, food supplies are being held up because many delivery workers themselves are under lockdown.
The platforms that we are using now, especially in my compound, starting today, we're doing these group buying, like group ordering. Let's say we buy like 30 sets or 50 sets, so that the people who have the supplies, they only need to send 1 time instead of 50 times. It's just unimaginable for a city like Shanghai, right? Like people would have food concerns. I think that's a lot of times what people are kind of thinking, like, how did that even happen?
Symptomatic cases in Shanghai soared to 824 yesterday, more than double Wednesday's figure. There were also 20,400 asymptomatic ones. With no immediate end in sight to the lockdown, there is concern about conditions in quarantine centers and transfer points.
There was no hot water, no electricity. It was just a room with some like makeshift beds. Then what's the point of transferring them there if they could have just stayed home with better support and better equipment.
Apart from Shanghai, China registered about 3,000 infections yesterday, with Jilin accounting for 80%. But officials in the northeastern province said they achieved their dynamic zero target today. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong's daily COVID cases have slid for the third consecutive day. Officials reported 2,492 new infections, including 8 imported cases. 3 were discovered during routine screening at the airport, while the rest had been undergoing quarantine at a hotel. There were 71 COVID-related deaths in the past 24 hours. The youngest was a 45-year-old frequent drinker who arrived at the emergency room with severe liver problems. Health experts have again urged parents to have their children vaccinated after 13 youngsters who recovered from COVID were diagnosed with multisystem inflammatory syndrome. Doctors said jabs can help prevent problems surfacing. Maisie Mock reports.
In the past month, 13 children have been diagnosed with multi-system inflammatory syndrome about 2 to 5 weeks after they recovered from COVID. The symptoms included rashes, continuous fever, and cracked lips. Some suffered cardiac failure but recovered after treatment. The authority analyzed the cases of 11 children aged 3 to 11, 7 of whom were put in intensive care. Most of them were not vaccinated.
This is why the vaccination is very effective, and evidence already showing that vaccination can effectively and prevent the happening of this MIS-C.
The authority also found that 3 of the 8 children who died from COVID did not have any previous health problems.
We do not quite understand, but at least for the 2 out of the 3 who died, in fact, died with a lot of evidence that their brain has suffered extreme degree of inflammation, directly causing the death. And the other one, at 4 years of age, we are still waiting for the coroner's report to understand why he died so suddenly after a very brief illness.
4 other children who died had a medical history. Since February, 26 other children who tested positive were admitted to hospital in critical condition, with 12 of them directly due to COVID. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
In a bid to increase the vaccination rate for the elderly, the government is encouraging those above 60 to get a 4th jab. And more outreach teams are preparing to vaccinate the elderly in their residence and at residential care homes. Johanna Chan reports.
With those aged 60 and above accounting for 95% of deaths from COVID in the 5th wave, the government is urging 4 jabs for the elderly. They can take the 4th dose 3 months after their 3rd. Online bookings for the 190,000 people who are eligible start on Thursday. Health Chief Sophia Chan said people below 60 are advised to take 3 jabs. Government vaccine advisor Lau Yulong said the 4th jab is unnecessary for healthy and young people, adding it could tire them out. This came as authorities prepared to push for home vaccinations for those aged over 70 by the end of the month. Civil Service Chief Patrick Nip, who heads the vaccination program, said 19 senior citizens and disabled people were given shots in a pilot scheme.
The number is small, that's expected. But these provide us a very useful operational experience in the logistics, in the flow, in all the arrangements. And also, most importantly, if not for this home vaccination arrangement, these elderly or persons with disability would not be able to get vaccinated. So despite that it's a very labor, resource-intensive exercise, I think it's very worth doing it.
Bookings will become available on an online platform later this month. The government is also arranging for outreach teams to vaccinate COVID-recovered care home residents and 2nd and 3rd shots for others before next Friday. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
Today is the first day of a government program for residents to test themselves at home for COVID for 3 straight days. Speaking at her daily press briefing, Chief Executive Carrie Lam said the rapid antigen tests using kits provided by the government can help weed out silent transmissions. Authorities have delivered over 3 million anti-COVID packs to people at home, and over 50,000 more were collected at service centers. Lam said there were enough resources to go around. Overseas now, at least 39 people are feared dead in eastern Ukraine after 2 rockets hit a train station as civilians were being evacuated. Russia denied any responsibility in the attack, which occurred hours after Moscow was removed from the United Nations Human Rights Council. Sarah Wong reports.
Russia has unleashed fresh assaults as its invasion of Ukraine entered a new phase. Dozens of people were reported killed when a railway station in Kramatorsk in the Donbass region in the east was hit by 2 rockets, allegedly launched by the Russians. The Ukrainian army warned of more attacks, with Mariupol being Moscow's prize target. Kyiv also accused Russia's ally Belarus of mobilizing its troops and planning airstrikes against Ukraine. Meanwhile, more bodies were found in houses and backyards in Bucha, where Russian forces were accused of executing civilians. Moscow denied any involvement in the atrocities. Volunteers drove across the once tranquil middle-class suburb to move bodies from makeshift graves to the cemetery. The gruesome images prompted the United Nations General Assembly to suspend Russia from the Human Rights Council. China was among the 24 countries which opposed the move, while 58 others abstained.
I don't really care about the abstentions. I care that the Russian Federation was suspended and was very impatient and almost immediately capitulated by withdrawal. You know, you do not submit your resignation after you are fired.
For the first time since the invasion began 6 weeks ago, the Kremlin has admitted to setbacks on the battlefield.
We have significant losses of troops, and it's a huge tragedy for us.
Peskov also expressed the hope that Russia's special military operation will end soon. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan's hold on power is hanging by a thread after the Supreme Court ruled that his move to block a no-confidence vote was illegal. People celebrated on the streets of Karachi as the court ordered the vote to go ahead tomorrow when Parliament reconvenes. Khan is expected to lose, but vowed to continue fighting for the country to the end. Should he be removed from office, the opposition will appoint a prime minister to run the country until new elections are held in August. The Hang Seng Index closed slightly higher today on bargain hunting. Tencent lost 1.3% as the influential tech sector continued to lose ground. But financials performed well, with AIA gaining 2.6% and becoming the biggest point contributor to the rise in the stock benchmark. The mainland properties index also rose, although trading in the stocks of many developers remained suspended. A look at the markets now. The Hang Seng Index closed up 63 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $4.80, Alibaba down $1.40. Li Ning was down $3.15, AIA up $2.10. To foreign exchange rates, the euro is at 8.51, British pound 10.21, Canadian dollar 6.22. In foreign markets, the UK FTSE is up 79 points. A look at the weather before we go. It will continue to be fine, dry, and hot tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 20 and 28 degrees, staying hot and dry on Sunday and Monday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Thanks for watching. Good night.